Hi guys, what up? What is up? It's Shani with Healing Elements. What's up? Doing the archetype out of the movie Up. And the archetype is going to be of Carl, the old man, the main character in the story. This is an archetype all about Carl from the movie Up. Carl is a beautiful, traditional person who is very structured, very cautious, and it's a beautiful story. It starts out when he was a little boy, and Nellie and Carl in this movie are a couple, and they meet again when they're very little, and they have a childhood interest in this explorer, and although they have that interest, they're very opposite in personality, so it's cute. Nellie, the girl, is very adventurous, like he is, but in a more exuberant and reckless way. One of the scenes in the beginning is, she's like, "Oh, let's go play," and is very rough and tough kind of tomboy and challenges him to walk across this a very precarious 2x4, and he ends up breaking a limb because of it. And so, in any case, this is about Carl, not the couple, not the movie. So, the archetype of Carl in the movie Up. Great movie if you've never seen it before. Love it. About someone who is rigid and habitual, who likes structure and to have the same thing occur in the same time frame every day and expect this reliability to bring on a sense of meaning, purpose, and comfort. So by design, Carl is like this growing up as a little boy, and it flashes back to different experiences. It kind of does a montage and kind of brings you up to speed on where he is currently in his life, which is a crotchety old single man, because unfortunately he loses in old age, his wife Nellie. And so this talks about not so much codependency, but we could put that into it, but a familiarity, so much so with he has to his wife, and never seeing it to fruition. So they had a dream and they would save up money to go to Venezuela and see Paradise Falls. Right into the explorer from when they were children, their interest in this. And so they had this goal, and it shows, a couple of times during the montage where they're growing up in which they had to, like break the penny jar for a rainy day, like when the car would break, show roof repairs and different things along the way, in which the savings jar, as they grow older together, they don't have any children, so they're very, again, not codependent, but very close, tight knit, very in tune with each other, very, again, dependent upon that being their lifestyle for the long term. And archetype of Carl talks about being extremely agitated, frustrated, pickled, totally disgruntled with what you have been dealt with in life. So, I definitely appreciate grief so much. I saw my mom go through it in a really, really impactful way, and everyone grieves, I think, in their own way. And I never, ever want to put expectations or guidelines on, oh, you should not feel this way, or you should not try to channel this person right after their death. They have 4 months until you can contact them. I do not believe that. I do not believe that there's any parameters you should put on anybody when they're in that position of grieving. It's a certain type of sadness is very, very difficult and specific, and it is for each person to personally move through. So this archetype of Carl talks about that, having a grief stricken demeanor that in fact makes him so crotchety and so cranky and agitated. He's frustrated with the fact that he has to live in this world without Nellie, and so he is determined to continue his daily routine, of course without Nellie, but you see her chair still there, and he puts up her picture, and he's very much still in this patterned habit of going about the daily routine. And so then when we first really, the movie starts to pop open, and we've seen the montage and we've seen their beginnings, and we now see Carl as the main character. He is being encroached upon, like gentrification, where this, you open up in the scene as his little house that he had with his wife is, this whole life, and he's the only house. It's like eminent domain has obviously taken place in real estate. There's like just their house, and all around is a construction zone. And these suits are coming to his door and bugging Carl, and he is not happy about this, telling him that, when are you going to sell? You're the only house left. This is going to be this and that. We're going to get you anyway. And so he is just not going to give up, and he's like trying anything in his imagination, including, being cranky, frustrated, getting crazy with one of the construction workers over the construction worker ran into his mailbox and they had their handprints on their mailbox. So when we talk about Carl's interest in love, he's very romantic, sentimental, and stuck in his ways, does not want to be encroached upon. So somebody who is very much private and does not want any uninvited guests to come in and try to search and seize his agenda, emotions, or change his plans, right? And so what happens is, in this moment where he's frustrated, he has the little cane with the tennis balls on the end, right? Stereotypical. He, in the moment of seeing the mailbox crash down, the construction worker backs into it on accident. He loses his temper. So this archetype is about an agitation that is just on the surface, being ready to explode because of an underlying, more deeply seated, really important grief or sadness that you're dealing with, trauma, something that has gone on. In this case, he has just begun to live with and learn to live without his wife for the first time. Plus the extra stress, about him being harassed pretty much every day to try to sell his home, and he does not want to. That doesn't truly think of plan B and C, right? So plan A, of course, was to stay with his wife in that home and retire and pass on as they were in old age. And so you can see that the changes are thwarting him into a different direction, and the universe always has a way. If you're not going to move in order to dissolve the stagnation and to give another opportunity of love to come in or out of you, right, toward a person or experience or endeavor or like hobby, then some, I call it like a God event is going to force your hand into. Carl's archetype is about being so rigid and stubborn and not having much play or options, and the last final straw was he takes his cane with the tennis balls in the end, like I was explaining, and he assaults the construction guy that accidentally ran over his mailbox. So this is about an underlying, again, brewing frustration. Like you're so irritated regarding something else that you either are aware that you're not dealing with or pushing down, or that you potentially are just so in a different state of mind, a headspace, you're not too sure what this pressure, it's like a pressure cooker, is all about. So when we talk about Carl's archetype, we talk about led into a sad state of mind after the anger, because he is basically given a choice here. You can, you assaulted that guy. Do you want us to call the police? And, you can either go to this retirement home or you can sell the house. So we are then, put into the story in which he shows the audience he has had a plan of escape and a backup plan the whole time, and it is quite whimsical. He and Nelly, their whole career was at the zoo, and he was a balloon man, right? So when we talk about somebody who really, again, adores ritual and adores the same circumstance and comfort of having a reliable job that is going to pay, and you just show up and do the same thing. So his whole life, since he was very young, and they both worked at the zoo. He was a balloon man, and he then moves into a energy. So this archetype switches from being rigid and immovable, fixed, and not going to hear no evil, see no evil, or speak no evil about what he is facing. He is facing like eminent domain, like I said, a whole bunch of construction. He pretty much, had to at some point move. And so he has a whole bunch of helium balloons. And this is, again, this is nonsensical when we talk about Disney or storylines or my metaphorical analyzations and interpretations, right? It's just about catching on, just catching a breeze, catching the overall emphasis, right? So, at first I remember watching this movie and going, "What? That doesn't make sense." Right? But that quote is probably one of the quotes that has just been tossed out the window for me, because let me tell you, with all these solar flares and all these popping up random spiritual or paranormal or ufology experiences for so many of us, I think that phrase, it just it can't live for very much can't live for very much longer. So anywho, he unveils a whole bunch of helium balloons that he has in his fireplace, and they inflate and the house rises, the whole entire house, all of these balloons, like hundreds and thousands of these balloons, and it lifts literally the house up and it's floating. And so he has this big plan that he wants to float it to where they were going to go and retire Venezuela and see the Paradise Falls. So here here we come into a part of Carl, the archetype, that is that person who is, let's just say, not an animal person or a dog person, and for some reason they are approached, befriended, bonded, linked up with this animal, and they are kind of pissed that they like it so much, right? You ever seen those people that are like, gosh dang it, dog, right? Oh, now I have to fall in love with you for the rest of your life, and that kind of thing. So this is where we talk about Carl's unwillingness to step into relationships of any other kind beside the relationship he had with his wife, and of course she's passed on and he's alone. Well, it talks about other parties that need companionship because there is a piece missing that they could fill with the other. And so it's about unorthodox pairings, this energy of Carl, the crotchety old man who you never could tell, but he was actually thinking not with his left brain, the logical. He wasn't thinking about that habitual Virgo type energy, that pattern structure, a real, quote unquote, real method in which to move the house. He was like, you know what, F it, I'm going to do it my own way. I have the supplies, I have the helium and the balloons, and I will make it so. So having a determination to accomplish a long-term goal, I think it's a big emphasis. So again, since they were children, like 5 or 10 years old, they both, Nelly and Carl, had planned on going to retire in Venezuela and see paradise. And so this is a determination, this vibe, archetype of, if there's a will, there's a way, and even if there's not a way, I have a will, and there will be a way made, no matter what. About companionship that is kind of pushed upon us, almost like maybe if you're asked to babysit or dog sit, and you're just not, you're not a kid person or an animal person. I can't picture that, but that's just because I'm a dork in him. But this is about somebody who, at the end of the weekend, is like blowing the owner's mind. It's like, oh, we're besties and you can't have this animal back or this child back, right? So being put in a situation in which you form a bond. So what happens is, after Carl, this archetype, goes up in the balloon house, he gets a knock on his door. And so it is this little Boy Scout that keeps on trying to come to his house and trying to earn these different badges, and is very all about curiosity and talking, and very, very, very unassumingly handy. Like the monkey spirit, it's an unassuming, you don't think that the chimpanzee is as strong and as dangerous as it is. It's an unassuming menace, but in any case is very powerful. So I think that this, he's a short, chubby child, and he is very resourceful throughout the, you know, their hero's journey. Once they, get up in the sky and he gets them inside, Carl realizes that they're going to go through a storm. They have all these different, challenges and obstacles along the way, and different various adventures based on both of their unorthodox choices. Carl and the little Boy Scout, they are getting themselves out of sticky situations, and sometimes with a method that the other one wouldn't use. And so having an appreciation for, okay, something is different than me, but I can still appreciate and grow to be affectionate toward this, right? And so when we talk about Carl, we talk about, almost, I feel like, if you've seen Finding Nemo, it's the dad in Nemo, this very a doubting Thomas type of vibe, if you're familiar with that. Something that is, you know, kind of dragging their feet, not so much leaping toward faith and a wondrous, positive, patty attitude like we can do it. And that is very similar to the Boy Scout child that is on his porch. And so when we talk about Carl, we also have to talk about America, that explorer that is said to be somewhere lost in the, Paradise Falls area in Venezuela. And it really intrigued and enthralled, again, Nelly and Carl in this movie. And so this is about the false prophets when we talk about the archetype of Carl, or getting our hopes up and putting in emphasis and belief into somebody or what somebody stands for, and then seeing them for their true colors and seeing the mask fall down. So having, though, in this case, it be Carl who is totally disappointed, and it's a sad vibe, a disappointment when we perhaps someone who's really going to come save us, like Superman on the TV, is truly not out there able to lift a whole subway, right? There's things that if we put too much belief and power in the, assumption of what we think this is about, and sometimes we build that assumption and those things that we appreciate up upon the things that we are specifically drawn to in any case, and we kind of make it fantastical. And so when we give and we put too much expectation on what that means and what that will look like and how person, place, or thing will make you feel and come across, and the anticipation is actually more exciting, much more exciting than meeting or interacting with the party themselves. So this is talking about Carl getting a big sense of disappointment, the fandom, the way in which him and his wife were constantly fixated, almost like a sports team. That was their thing, this explorer, right? They were just so into it. And so for all of that they had built up, or Carl, the archetype talks about, he had built up an idea of what this explorer was, this innocent, cool guy who, was wronged by the government, and that, he was trying to find this elusive animal out there, right? I mean, this is just, you can put so much, like, let's say, I don't know, if you're into politics, like if you're putting so much expectation on, I'm just going to say it, on any 4 years ever, like if you're going to feel that the next chain of command is going to totally be a breath of fresh air and fix everything, that's a little bit unrealistic. And so when we talk about putting our thoughts and energies and belief and commitment and our adoration behind someone, we always should just keep it simply, I think, in mind that we are all human, and so we truly never know, looking from afar, how a celebrity is interacting in their own house environment, or who they truly sum out to be. So just because a comedian is, let's say, giddy, joyful, funny, personable, charismatic on stage, sometimes that is their superpower. Sometimes people have a superpower of coming out of their shell in those scenarios. Like, for instance, the Broadway musical star that is timid and an introvert, but gets up and sings, and leads the whole show. This is about putting too much, again, importance, or too much, building up expectation of like a golden child or golden seal, like this rose-colored glasses about something that you like, and making it into so much of a fantasy that no matter what, you're going to be disappointed when you face the reality of what that person or place is. But in this case, it was, a really, really big jet to the heart. In this case, this guy was mean. He was corrupt. He had dogs that he was trying to sick on, on Carl and the little boy, and it just was overall, not what Carl had thought. So this is about illusions being shattered based upon us putting too much idealism and importance and painting a picture, kind of like maybe people do for sports members, right? Like people who are athletes, people get shocked and awed, and so up in a roar and want to do this whole cancel culture when they find out that an athlete is, I don't know, in jail for a DUI, or if he or she takes weed on a plane, like the girl from the basketball squad in Russia, right? Or are lawyers, there are police officers that come in contact with the same problems and serious problems like addictions, or getting in trouble with the law, and or something that, like Michael Vick, an athlete who got in trouble from running a pit bull fighting ring, and in just really poor, horrible conditions, about how the dogs lived and what they did to the dogs once they were, not able to fight anymore, and things like that. Well, I just remember everybody being so condemning and so shocked that, oh, an athlete can have this, or whatever. An athlete maybe just 2 weeks ago was caught in the airport. He had a firearm, and they're so shocked. It's like, you guys, celebrities, athletes, people that you're listening to, plain and simple, are capable of making the same mistakes as all of us. I'm a hot mess. No. I've told you guys that I am a humble human that is definitely not here to preach, teach, or give you all the answers, because they're for you to find within. And also doing what Carl the Archetype was doing, putting too much importance on somebody who, yes, you may respect, trust, and they could have a great leadership quality, and someone who is definitely able to give you some pointers and let you marinate and think about it. But this is about, just be careful. I mean, when we're talking about the archetype of Carl, there is so much that we could say about how much that moment gave him more strength, though, when he found out and his ideals were crushed based on who he thought this explorer that he and his wife had adored their whole life was. You guys, if you're going to use this energy of the archetype, you don't ever know what is on your horizon. You can never imagine what great things or other experiences, companionships, bonds, opportunities, unions, commitments, partnerships, deals that there could be awaiting for you that just pop you open unexpectedly and benefit, right? Benefit mutually. So this archetype at this juncture steps into his power because he sees frustration, agitation, and anger about something that he had built up in his mind so heavily, and now for it to be destroyed, it's kind of like he kind of stepped in his power, like, no, I'm not going to let that ruin this whole thing about coming down here to Paradise Falls, right? And he realizes his magnetism and relationship building with the little boy, because again, when he saw the little boy and this dog in peril or being bullied or just little adventures, when they meet the explorer, we see the character develop into, well, I'm gonna defend this person because I care and I have a new sense of bonding or commitment to someone other than my wife, right? So when we talk about Carl, we talk about being stuck in your ways, being crotchety, grumpy, being irritated, being frustrated with circumstances not having worked out. So a victim mentality definitely can play in. But then, transforming out of this victim mentality and kind of having these hidden things, whether or not they show up on your doorstep, literally, like the little boy, or that you plan for, like the balloons to lift your house. This is whether or not you're looking for it. You face and they bring on new enriching moments, memories, experiences, meaningful, touching pieces to the puzzle that you fit in for someone. So this Boy Scout is looking for this one badge to help out elderly, right? And so it works out perfect. And he mentions a couple times that he has a mom only. He's a single mom and that he barely sees his dad. And he says some stories that are kind of sad, like, well, I waited for my dad and he didn't show up in the rain, things like that. Or, he doesn't really have time because of his new family to come to my assemblies and things like that. And so this is, setting the stage for this, adventure to end up coming full circle and then making it back, because he has to as soon as he sees the little boy on the front porch, because he just came over to knock and didn't know the house was rising. He knew he had to get him back home, and so whether or not he would stay in Venezuela or look for Paradise Falls, he knew in that moment that he would have to take him back. And that again is developing character of bonding. You're seeing him care and know that sometimes unexpected twists and turns in the story, right, in our hero's journey, or just circumstantial crap that pops up, we have to then deviate, make a detour, and sometimes we have to be honest with ourselves and how we feel toward those parties that come in when maybe we don't need or think we need a friend, maybe we don't think we need that knock. Sometimes we really can get so much from different things that are so important. And when we are able to blend different aspects, ways of thinking, ways of being, like going with the flow, accepting surrender, and then sometimes really pulling up our sleeves and getting hard, going to work hard. This is a transformative journey. He goes from not wanting to even answer the door to anyone whatsoever. He does not want to talk to anybody. His wife's dead. He just wants to do his own independent. Kind of reminds me of Gran Turismo with Clint Eastwood. Like, he just is on, he's on his own. But you know what? Things in the neighborhood and friends come to call in even when we seek them. And so this is all about you not wanting to engage on an adventure with somebody or share your space and love with somebody, especially if they're completely the opposite of you. This is just a beautiful energy that teaches us we are not always stuck in our ways, as rigid and as fixed as some people or signs seem to be. There is always a bigger fish. There's always something that is going to come and capture our attention or capture us and our passion or desire to move towards something else. So in any case, I appreciate you guys. I'm really enjoying these, and I am really glad to be back talking, and I appreciate you guys listening. Yeah, I hope that you guys are just staying peaceful or intact in any way that means for you, letting yourself not have guilt if you do have any kind of moments that seem too highly strange for you, to know that we all are on different paths and we all have different experiences within these shifts and activations that we go through, and we change and we evolve and we ascend in our spiritual journey, and we just feel certain understanding is met and a different knowing. And this is important. This is important work here, but the truth is, you guys, we are definitely on stage here. This is going to end. The curtain closes, and guess what? Behind the curtain is a whole new, bigger world that is much more cohesive, much more in line with love, compassion, and no kind of games. There's no games, there's no jealousy, there's no trickery, there is no negativity within the light. Those higher dimensions are waiting and on, or it's some sort of unexplainable transcendental spiritual experience like the one my mom and I had in Marie Callender's, which I'll testify about. I think if you know, and you just look at him, and instead of really being driven crazy, but in it, if you kind of just laugh at it and go, well, well, that just popped up over there. I just saw something like pop and explode out of nowhere. And you know what? Hey, it could be magnetism, it could be a ghost, but no matter what it is, it doesn't have to shake the laughability. It's not like I'm saying, hey, nothing else matters, nothing matters, but I'm accepting that very, very tried and true, simple term, but it's like when you get it, I think that it's like an onion, you can get different layers of it. Like, you know, we cannot change things out of our control. Coming up, I don't see a resonance that I used to within, you know, furrowing the brow and wondering, what are we going to do about this? And it's like, there's different levels of experience. So you guys, I thank you for letting me express and letting me talk to you guys, letting me do this, which makes feel as if I'm in the right space and I'm creating things that are from my heart for when the time is right. And the time was right when I started to put out the archetype videos and different spirit animals. So I am definitely going to take it as I go, but I appreciate you guys, all the subscriptions, all the comments. I appreciate you guys hanging in there with me. I appreciate you, whether or not you are from gang mentality, gang stalkers, or if you're from, you know, the heart and you just saying, hey, what's up, Channy? I really appreciate all of it because it's all relevant. It's like, it's all relevant and it's all irrelevant. Right? Of this video about Carl from Up. And I think I'm going to, yeah, I've been enjoying this. I think I'm going to do a lot of characters out of Disney and also do the archetype for each tarot, major arcana tarot card. So, guys, I appreciate you. Blessings, love, and light.